I just want to give you a little bit of background to how I came to be here. But firstly, to thank United Success for allowing me this platform and for honouring my story. My initial career was as a ballet dancer. I danced for K-Pab Ballet Company, and after injuries, I was put into bed rest for a while. And my parents said to me, "Actually, Wendy, you were quite an academic student at school. Why don't you become an accountant?" Now, I don't know where ballet dancing and accounting actually dovetails, but there you go. There you have a good example of projection and conditioning. So what I did was I became an accountant, a chartered accountant, put my ballet shoes away, and climbed the corporate ladder. And I ended up in a company in South Africa called LeisureNet, which was a public listed company on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And I climbed that corporate ladder. I'd like to say that I broke through the glass ceiling. And I was at the top of my career trajectory. I saw myself going much further. I was the international group treasurer for this company when I discovered that there was endemic fraud and corruption within the company. Now, we're going back to the year 2000. There were no whistleblower protection acts. There were no laws or legislation around whistleblowers at all, in fact. So I was in a quandary, and I discovered through much of my research that these two gentlemen in LeisureNet, if I may call them that, they were the joint CEOs, were embezzling hundreds of millions of rands from shareholders' funds and storing them off into a bank account in Jersey in a German name. And so my career was halted in quite a tragic fashion. I then began to receive death threats, and that didn't make sense for me. I had a 12-year-old son at the time, and I elected to leave South Africa at that point and put myself into self-imposed exile in the UK. And emotionally and mentally bereft, I simply dissolved. And not being able to find a job, having been tainted with the label of whistleblower and been outed in that respect, I one day opened the fridge, there was no food. I couldn't pay my rent. I had a 12-year-old son to feed. And the next best thing that I could do was beg on the streets. And I went out to Kingston upon Thames railway station, and I set up my begging position. And this is the good news. I don't want to negate or dilute the tragedy of that. To go from a position of top executive in a public listed company to a beggar on the streets is a very extreme slide backwards. But I have the resilience of a Jack Russell Terrier. I also think like a farmer in that I plant the seed, I nurture it, I don't dig it up to see how it's grown. I'm patient, and I have a huge amount of endurance, which I needed, because what was going to happen next was truly awful. I lived on the streets. I squatted in a house with my 12-year-old son. It was literally appalling. I had to dodge the people that were going to throw me out of the house that we were squatting in. At the same time, I was being summoned back and forth to South Africa, where I was given a bodyguard for my testimony. That's how seriously they took the death threats. And I remained unemployed. It took me a full 11 years to see these guys jailed. So I didn't leave the story. I remained persistent, I remained consistent, and I endured for what was right. And out of the decay and destruction of my life, I learned certain things. And the first one is, when you dissolve and you have one of these meltdowns, you never ever lose your hard skills. I was the best accountant on the begging block. I was fabulous at marketing. I even got 2 dogs to join me in my begging because I knew the English people liked pets and dogs in particular. So I knew that was a marketing strategy. I had to negotiate my place to beg because you can't just pull into a place and start begging. You have to consider other beggars. Success now for me was merely survival. I got to look in the mirror at myself and feel happy with what I've done in my life. I got to realize that I am my son's hero. But more importantly than that, I got to realize I am my own hero. And I'm learning to realize that when you go with the knocks and punches in life and you have self-belief, you can make it happen for yourself. There's a fabulous, I'm going to finish off with 2 sayings. There's a fabulous saying that a river breaks through rock, not because it's powerful, but because of its consistency and its persistence. If you believe in what you're doing, have the passion to continue, because that will shine through. And lastly, with Nelson Mandela in my mind, one of the things he said was, who are you to play small? When you stand in your own strength and power, you give permission for others to do the same. So thank you for listening to this.